The Leafs have a lot of major decisions to make this offseason, including their coach, but they have a lot of unrestricted and restricted pending free agents that are going to have to be re-signed if the Leafs want to compete. So we're going to break those down and discuss some rumors regarding who they could be bringing back. So we're going to break all that down in this episode. But if you're a part of the 80% who aren't subscribed and you want to help us towards the goal of 10,000 subs, make sure to hit that button. It would mean the world to Darius and I. And thank you guys for your continued support. Darius, it looks like a coach might be hired this week, whether that's Craig Berube, Todd McLellan, whoever it is still unsure right now. But we're going to talk about some players today because caught up in all of this rumors with Mitch Marner potentially being traded, there is a lot of unrestricted and restricted free agents that the Toronto Maple Leafs could be pursuing and looking to either continue to have on the team or willing to let go. And let's just get into some of these guys here. So you can look at this. This is a great graphic by Leafs News here. So who do you think stays and goes? You can see on the left the UFAs, on the right the RFAs. And there's been some rumors about some of these guys, and we'll discuss some of those reports as well. But Darius, I kind of just want to get your thoughts. I think we can kind of agree that Max Domi is probably the UFA that's most likely to return based on multiple sources that have come out for that. But what are your thoughts on this?
I think Max Domi might be the only UFA
Yep.
that's going to return to the Leafs. If you take a look at the list, I would not bring back a big chunk of those guys, especially all the goalies. I would not re-sign any of them. Maybe Martin Jones as a third option, but you do have to figure out what you're doing in net first. I think they look at Tyler Bertuzzi too, and I'll start with the UFAs. I'll get to the RFAs in a second, but if you look at Tyler Bertuzzi, he's going to want a raise and he's going to want term. I don't know if that works out for the Leafs. I think before you even get into all of this, you have to figure out exactly what you're doing with Tavares and Marner, because clearly they're the two odd men out. If they're going to move on from anybody, you have to figure out what's going on with that and whether it is you keep them or not. If you're keeping them, fine, then move forward, right? But if you're keeping them, I don't think Tyler Bertuzzi's in the cards. But for sure, Max Domi, I think you bring back 100%. And it's not going to be a 1-year contract this time. It's going to be a pretty good contract. It sounded like on the RFA side, they want to keep Connor Dewar and obviously Nick Robertson. They're going to want to keep as well. Not sure you bring back Noah Gregor, Max Ellis. There's a couple of Marlies. I'm not sure you look at retaining them. Maybe Alex Steves. Liljegren I would bring back as well, because I think Liljegren can actually be a pretty good trade chip, even if you don't want to, keep him. If you do want to move on from him, I would still qualify him. But there is a lot of players I would not retain for the Leafs this year, and I would look to go a little bit in a different direction.
Yeah, and you look at all these guys, and the main two, most of these players, especially the goaltenders, are pretty easy answers for Brad Treliving. But Bertuzzi is the one that is the biggest question mark for most Leafs fans, and even reporters are a bit unsure. Like, he wants to return, and that's why we think Max Domi is going to return, because obviously he said it was his dream to be a Leaf and whatnot. But Bertuzzi is going to be the one that, there's some rumors he's going to get 5 years, $5 million, or $6 million for 5 years, and if that's the case, he might price himself out of Toronto. The one I could see returning, or at least the Leafs pursuing, is Joel Edmondson. He played really well for them. Obviously, he was a rental when they got him at the deadline. You can see this here. I'd be surprised if Domi isn't re-signed. Bertuzzi 50-50, but lean towards him re-signing since Brad emphasized more playoff-type goal scorers. And that's exactly what Tyler Bertuzzi would be. He performs in the playoffs fairly well, but it wasn't great this playoff run. But Joel Edmondson, Darius, I think would be one as well. And when you're looking at the RFAs here, these are a lot more interesting because you have guys like Connor Dewar, you have guys like Nick Robertson. All these players have value, and you mentioned Liljegren as well. I think they need to bring back Connor Dewar, and Brad Treliving spoke and said he should be healthy for camp, as if he already knows.
Spoiler.
Back in his press conference that they're gonna bring him back, and that seems to be the kind of consensus here, is that Dewar should be on the opening night roster, on the opening night lineup, and a part of that the depth forward group.
Yeah, and I kind of agree with Leafs Nation News, if you could bring that back up for a second too, that Dewar should be back 100%. I don't really agree with Noah Gregor. I think he really lost it there in the season. He was scratched for a big chunk of time and obviously came back into the playoffs, but that was due to injuries. But I would qualify all the RFAs pretty much, like almost all of them I would, because even if you do want to move on from Nick Robertson, which I think, and I've been vocal about, might be a mistake, or Timothy Liljegren, I think it would be useful to have them at least under contract instead of just, you still retain their services. So definitely qualify them. I'm not sure if either of them really played themselves into a brand new contract that would lead them to UFA or anything. That's definitely not the case. So I would retain their services. And even if you want to move on from them, then you can trade them during the season or next offseason, right? But I would definitely qualify almost all of those players, especially Connor Dewar. I thought he was really effective for the Leafs. So in terms of UFAs, I wouldn't expect many to return, but RFAs, almost all.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you on that. And most of these guys have value. You usually don't want to lose players that you think other teams could potentially go for. You mentioned it with Lilligren there. And this is an interesting article by Sam Turpak here. It says, not article, tweet. UFAs I'd want to keep, and I think we kind of agree with most of these, and obviously focusing on Bertuzzi. Bertuzzi is the biggest wild card, so we're going to have to see what happens with him going forward. Domi's going to happen. And he says one of Edmondson or Lyubushkin. I'd much prefer Edmondson. I think they want to move towards defensemen who can move the puck a little better than Lyubushkin showed the ability to. And obviously they brought him in with the full knowledge that he's not going to be a very good puck mover. But I think Edmondson fits a little bit better, especially depending on who they bring in coaching-wise and what their plan is, their defensive schemes and all that. And then the RFAs, yeah, most of them, but definitely Connor Dewar. That's going to happen. He is going to stay a Leaf. Great addition by Brad Treliving at the deadline last season. And then Steves and Gregor is debatable, but Robertson and Lilligren, you kind of just have to, you mentioned it, to trade them because, I mean, Sheldon Keefe put him in the doghouse a lot this year, and kind of rightfully so. We played a few games in the playoffs. He looked okay, getting out 7 to 9 minutes a game because of the injuries to Nylander, Matthews, whatever it was. But Darius, I think ultimately the biggest priority should be Domi and then Connor Dewar, and I think both of them is gonna, like, both of those are gonna happen. I can't see the Leafs missing out on any of the UFAs if they really want them, because it seems like they want to return to Toronto anyway. Bertuzzi might be the only one that some Leafs fans end up a little bit up in arms about if he maybe signs for 5 years, $5 million. But even that's a little steep. But we know what Brad Treliving went out to say in the press conference, and he went up to basically just said that they want players like Tyler Bertuzzi, and you look at his cap hit 5.5 last year, so it would be an interesting one. But Bertuzzi, he showed some flashes really good in the playoffs last year.
Yeah, Bertuzzi's for the Bruins, he was unreal. This year, obviously, it didn't work out, but the dynamic of the Leafs is a little bit different, right? But it's true. He does play or score playoff-style goals that a lot of Leafs don't, and that's been a problem for a long time and has been addressed. Well, it's been talked about, but it hasn't been addressed, and I think if they were to bring him back, that could help. But what does it look like? What does the contract look like? The Leafs have to be very careful giving term to any player really at this point, but Tyler Bertuzzi as well, because he's going to demand even more money than that, and he will get it somewhere else if he decides to leave the Leafs. So we really have to just see what the contract looks like. In terms of everyone else, like you said, I totally agree. Edmondson, he's a little bit better than people give him credit for. I wouldn't mind seeing him return. I think he would look great on the Leafs once again. Again, that's going to be up to him and his agent, so that would be fun. And I think the Lyubushkin experiment is done again. Like you said, he can't move the puck. He was there for the playoffs, but again, they need puck moving defensemen, at least a couple of them, and I just don't see him taking a spot next year. So they have a lot of money coming off the books, and they have to spend it wisely. Like Brody's coming off, a lot of people forget that too. They have to spend it pretty wisely, and if you put all of it back into Bertuzzi for a long time, that could hurt the rest of the team. So we'll just have to see what they end up doing, but there are a lot of holes that they have to fill this offseason.
Yeah, and I think it all starts with the coach, and then see what the coach, because they said, starts with the coach, see what he's kind of not feeling, but see what kind of players he wants to bring back. But ultimately, We'll see what Brad Treliving does. But that'll wrap it up. Let us know in the comments, out of these players, leave your list of the UFAs you want to retain and the RFAs that you want to retain. The RFAs are a bit easier. And also don't forget to hit the subscribe button. We're on the road to 10,000. Thank you guys for watching. See you soon.